This week, it's only a game show, but what a game show. We are at E3 to look at the big new games, the new games stars made by you, and the mum and daughter trying to boost representation in games. Hey, welcome to Click. Lovely to see you out in the sunshine. Lovely to see you too, Laura. How are you doing?
And you, I'm good. The sunshine is wonderful.
Yes.
But of course, at this time of year, we're usually enjoying the Los Angeles sun, getting ready for E3, the massive video games convention.
Yeah, but even though we're not in LA, we're darn well going to dress like it.
This is what E3 looks like. This is what E3 sounds like.
Basically, the gaming world takes over LA's convention centre, theatres and hotels to launch the latest games and consoles with as much pizzazz as Tinseltown can muster, which is a lot.
For the second year running, LA won't be crammed with gamers because the whole event has been moved online.
Yeah, I do hope that Hollywood has another industry to fall back on. Now, all of this means that Mark Chislak can't live the LA life while he covers the expo, but hilariously, he still has to keep LA hours. So here's his bleary-eyed report.
We had some of this.
You are go for launch.
But none of this. The COVID-19 pandemic means the annual E3 Games Convention has done away with its usual physical event in favour of an online affair. I'm in London, not LA, and there is an E3 event of sorts on. First out of the blocks at this online-only E3 were Ubisoft. They've drafted in an actor who's broken bad and mopped up a Mandalorian to star as the villain in their new game, Far Cry 6.
These fish?
Giancarlo Esposito is starring as Anton Castillo, the big bad running a fictional Caribbean dictatorship in open-world shooter Far Cry 6. The title's brought into sharp focus the issue of politics or political themes in games.
The reality is, every piece of work you put out in the world is political to some degree, whether it's a film, a book, a TV show, or game. Far Cry 6 is no different. So what interests me is what are we talking about? What themes are we hitting? For example, we talk about the rise of fascism. We talk about human rights. We talk about imperialism in the context of a revolution, a modern revolution.
After developing the tie-in game to James Cameron's first Avatar movie, a title which, it's fair to say, failed to set Pandora alight, Ubisoft's having another stab at a game starring 9-foot-tall blue cat people. Details about the next Avatar film are thin on the ground, but the event cinematic suggests the game will focus on adventures in the movie's universe rather than a retread of the big screen experience. Xbox was the next show in the E3 lineup, and after spending the GDP of a small country on acquiring mega publisher Bethesda, expectations were high. Halo Infinite was supposed to launch alongside the Xbox Series X. However, when fans got a first look at the game last year, it's putting it mildly to say they were unimpressed. In fact, adverse fan reaction forced developers 343 into delaying the game to spend more time tweaking it.
The flag is ours.
The most important thing is the quality of the games. We know that, our customers tell us that, our own teams feel that. And it's been a difficult year when you think about production in the time of COVID. We took the feedback from people. We brought a new leadership, and this was a big time for us to show multiplayer. Halo's multiplayer has always been such a strength.
Xbox played it safe by showing us multiplayer gameplay, which included looks at special armor and fan favorite weapons like the energy sword, and in a challenge to the likes of Call of Duty Warzone, Halo multiplayer will be free to play.
I think you see how these free-to-play multiplayer games have really done well. You can look at things like PUBG, you can look at Fortnite, you can look at Warzone. When you have multiplayer, it really is about a vibrant and growing player base, and that's our goal. And we've always said, when everyone plays, we all win.
Forza 5 Horizon heads to Mexico, demoing a jungle rally from its campaign mode and some incredible landscapes, along with very, very shiny cars. But one of the biggest ticket items came courtesy of that $7.5 billion acquisition of ZeniMax, Bethesda's parent company. This might be the first new games franchise in 25 years from the developer behind the Fallout and Elder Scrolls games, but Bethesda still hasn't shown us any Starfield gameplay.
I think the problem for me with Starfield is that we don't really know what the game is going to be like to play. We know it's going to be open world, you're going to have the freedom to do what you want, but that trailer did a really bad job of showing me why I should be excited, why I should be, adding it to a wish list somewhere to make sure that I'm, in the know for all the new information. Like, it looked fantastic, but I think there was such a disconnect between the presentation and the actual reality of what that game is going to be.
We did get a very atmospheric cinematic and a launch date, 11th of November 2022, for this hugely anticipated sci-fi RPG. It will also arrive day one on Xbox's subscription service, Game Pass. But what about the big no-show?
PlayStation.
Sony bowed out of E3 back in 2019. Does its absence leave the field clear for arch-rival Xbox to do some catching up?
PlayStation really was very conspicuous by its absence, but I think the fact that Microsoft finally came together with what it's been doing over the past 4 or 5 years of buying different developers, I think in that case Microsoft suddenly showed the results of what it's been doing, and suddenly people actually thought, some people for the first time I think thought, Xbox Game Pass, I think I need this.
Seeing all those big games labelled as day one on Xbox Game Pass is a very, very attractive proposition for gamers, especially when you're looking at, £70, $70 AAA purchases for the PS5, and looking at what the Xbox Series X has for 2022, and not really knowing what Sony is doing for this Christmas, let alone in 2022, is a really precarious position for them to be in.
It's me, Wario!
The last major show belonged to Nintendo. They'd already quashed any hopes of seeing a new, more powerful version of the popular console, the Switch. Instead, Nintendo relied on one of its biggest franchises, Zelda, doing all the heavy lifting. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is still in development, but a new trailer revealed that as well as adventuring on terra firma, Link will also take to the skies. We got a tiny bit of gameplay, but little else. It's slated for release sometime in 2022. Nintendo has been raiding the back of the cupboards with Switch refreshes for the likes of WarioWare, which challenges the player to complete a dizzying array of mini-games, such as peeling face masks and avoiding bird poo, while beating a ticking clock. As well as Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, celebrating 20 years of spear-rolling simians. This certainly wasn't the E3 that we're used to, but it's worth remembering that the pandemic has slowed down and disrupted lots of video game development, so it's a minor miracle that we got to see any new content at all. With any luck, we'll have an event that we can attend in person in 2022.
Hello and welcome to the Week in Tech. It was the week that Chinese smartphone companies OnePlus and Oppo merged. Amazon opened its 5th convenience store of just walk-out shopping in London's Chalk Farm neighbourhood, and Twitter is testing out an unmentioned button, asking users for feedback on the feature. It would allow a user to edit themselves out of unwanted conversations. It was also the week that an autonomous, artificially intelligent ship set sail across the Atlantic. The Mayflower has no crew on board and is retracing the 400-year-old pilgrim route from Plymouth in the UK to Massachusetts in the US. The ship will carry out experiments on the way, collecting data on sea life and looking for plastic waste. The winner of the Davidson Prize, a new contest for smart designs to adapt homes in the era of at-home working, was given to Home Forest. The app connects with smart devices to transform the home into a forest bathing experience, replicating the feeling of walking in nature. Volvo announced it's looking at ways to develop fossil fuel-free steel for its cars with Swedish steelmaker SSAB. It aims to use the steel in its cars by 2026. Volvo plans to make its cars fully electric by 2030. And finally this week we saw the largest number of children to ever sing on a Zoom call. 97,967 children in the Young Voices Choir joined in singing Lovely Day with Billy Ocean at the O2 in London via the online service.
This is the MatePad Pro, and it's the first chance I've had to go hands-on with the new Harmony OS, Huawei's replacement for Android that it says is a next-generation operating system. After Donald Trump put Huawei on that US trade blacklist and blocked it from using Google services, Huawei said it would move to its own Harmony OS, which it told reporters would be completely different from Android. Now, the version of Harmony OS running on this tablet looks a lot like Android. The interactions are the same. The tablet also runs Android apps, so I can stick the BBC News Android app on here and it runs fine. The same goes for Google Maps. And if you run a diagnostic test app, it will report that this tablet is running Android 10. Now, the core of Android is open source, and there's nothing wrong with taking that and branching off to make your own software. That's what Amazon has done with its Fire OS, and it clearly states that that is a fork of Android. Now, it looks like this is what Huawei's done here on the tablet, branching off and adding some of its own code. Although it really didn't want to say it, it gave me some very vague answers. Although it did say Android apps are currently compatible with some devices running Harmony OS 2. This Huawei Watch 3 is running Harmony OS, so it should work seamlessly with the tablet, although when I tried to use the watch as a camera viewfinder for the tablet, I couldn't get it to work. What is this experience like for a UK consumer? Obviously there are no Google services, but Huawei has been working to develop its own replacements, such as Petal Maps, which comes pre-installed. It's powered by TomTom and has most of the features you'd expect. There's a movie store with popular films, and Huawei Music, a streaming app that had every hit artist I searched for from major labels. Although there were a few anomalies, this definitely isn't Steps. I tried to reverse image search to find out where this had come from. I'm guessing it's a tribute act, but I couldn't find anything, so if this is you, please tweet me, I'd love to know more. I also found some of the artist bios show up in foreign languages, and other Huawei apps aren't really optimized for the tablet display. The voice assistant Celia is a little bit rough around the edges too. I tried asking my watch, what time is it? And it didn't know. Perhaps the biggest hurdle for a UK audience is the loss of the Google Play Store, and with it, a lot of popular apps. Petal Search lets you find and install a lot of Android apps from third-party sources. But what happens when Android and Harmony OS start to diverge? Will app developers in the UK and US really make a Harmony OS version of their software on top of the Android and iOS versions, when many of them didn't even adapt their apps for Huawei App Gallery when the whole thing was running Android? The concept of Harmony OS, where all your devices communicate seamlessly, is a good one if you're willing to go all in on Huawei, and I can see that being popular in China, but it might still be a hard sell in the UK and US until some of these wrinkles are ironed out.
Brilliant, that was Chris. Now, making video game characters or virtual humans in movies generally looks like this. It often takes weeks, sometimes months even, and so it's usually reserved for the big AAA games or movie makers with big ideas and even bigger budgets. But that is about to change. Take a look at these. They look pretty real, don't they? But of course these are completely fabricated digital renders made using a new creator tool from Epic Games.
My name is Kai. I'm a metahuman, just like all the others, and this is my first day on the job.
Yes, the technology used to create these characters, these digital renderings of humans, has just become a lot easier, faster and accessible to more of us. Alex Humphreys has been finding out more.
Today's filming location is pretty epic. I've come to the London Innovation Lab, home to some of the team at Unreal Engine. They're owned by Epic Games, the makers of the hugely popular Fortnite.
What is Unreal Engine? Well, it's software that allows actors to be fully immersed in virtual worlds.
Yep, not only is it used for building games, but has since evolved for use in virtual production, where the digital and physical worlds meet. It's an industry that is still growing, with Epic Games being instrumental in making this technology shift happen. And so now it's not only game designers who use this, but TV and movie studios too.
But I'm not here to talk about virtual production. I'm here to look at Epic Games' new tool for creating digital humans.
Meet Dana. She's 24, likes dogs more than people, and studies art in New York. Oh, and she doesn't actually exist. I made her in half an hour. She was made using Unreal Engine's new MetaHuman creator. Whereas once only professionals could make digital characters look this real, now it's open to anyone.
Normally it's in the weeks and months for an artist to create a single face, but our intent was to reduce that down to minutes. So you can actually create a plausible photoreal digital human in half an hour, no problem.
And in that time, this is how I made Dana.
So I've got a database of over 50 characters here, and I can choose 4 or more even and blend their features together. So let's do this.
Making Dana was so easy, and it's all because of geometry and 4D scanning. The team at Epic scanned a diverse group of real people, allowing them to track lots of data, like the topology of faces and expressions. This data was then broken down into separate components for us to choose from to make our own new person.
When you use the tool, really what's happening when you pick and move a point, sometimes you might think it's like sculpting, but actually what it's doing is when you're moving that point, it is finding the best fit from what we have available in that database to where you're moving that point. People started doing work with the characters within Unreal Engine, and I think that's when they've really come to life actually, because when you see what a skilled artist can do, someone that knows how to work with light and composition with these characters, we've seen short films and performances.
I was intrigued to find out what a professional would do with Dana, so I enlisted the help of Swedish 3D artist Anton Palmqvist. He had already been experimenting with MetaHuman and made these fantastic characters.
Oh wow, she looks so much more real, doesn't she?
It's pretty much a game changer because it could be really, really expensive to hire a character artist to do these kind of highly detailed humans before. Or if you scan it yourself, you would have a huge scan rig, and that's super expensive. So now we can get to do these things just for free, like this, with the tools that they've released for us. So
I think people are fascinated with photoreal digital humans. Can I create something absolutely lifelike? And how people run with that, I think, still to be seen beyond. There's the kind of the known ways that people produce content, but then I think particularly influencers. You know, we've seen, though they exist already, these virtual characters that resemble no real person but have huge following, like millions of followers on Instagram. I think we'll see more of those kinds of things happening.
Christopher Travers is an expert on virtual influencers and has dedicated his career to the development of these digital characters.
We're at about, I would say, 200 virtual influencers created. We're at about 10,000 virtual YouTubers created. I would say in 50 years, there will still be human influencers, but virtual influencers will be the dominant influencer online.
With digital humans becoming easier and faster for anyone to make, there is a sinister side to all of this. And one worry is that people will use tech like MetaHuman for catfishing, which is when someone pretends to be someone they're not.
Like if I was a catfisher, I'd much rather use this kind of fabricated photorealistic imagery rather than trawling the web, trying to look for actually existing photographs out there. So in that respect, it will make catfishing much more harder to detect.
People leverage other people's photos, and so it's very hard to say in what ways would ill-minded people use this. But yeah, the amount of work that's required to do something like that, I think you'd have to be extremely talented to actually get to a level where you could pull that off, which would be a strange use of talent. But
tech like the MetaHuman creator is a long way off being able to replicate humans completely. At the moment, its main use will be for creating secondary or non-playable characters in games. But with tools like this making digital humans accessible to everyone and anyone, we'll certainly be seeing more of them in future. Or maybe we won't, as they'll all just look like the rest of us.
Great stuff. Now, one of the big differences between playing a game and watching a movie is that you, the player, can become the star of it. In fact, many games allow you to customise your avatar, so you can just become a virtual version of yourself.
But that hasn't always been the case. Kessewa Brown has been taking a look at how far black representation truly has come in games in the last few years, and what one mother and daughter have been doing to tackle the issue.
This is Yvonne, a graphic designer based in London. And this is her daughter, Alyssa. She's playing the game that they designed together, Fro Bells. But they didn't create this app for the fun of it, they wanted to solve a long-lived problem in gaming.
When Alyssa came to me and said, Mum, you know, I'm looking for characters with hair like mine, why is it that these games don't actually have that? You know, it really brought home the fact that it's so important for children to see themselves, whether that's in games, in books, you know, in the media. And for her to show to me that actually it was something that was disappointing for her to not see Afro hair, it made me realise that actually we needed to do something ourselves.
After struggling to find a dress-up game that featured black characters, they decided to make their own, and Fro Bells was born. It's a dress-up game that aims to empower young black girls and improve representation in gaming.
There are two games that I really like to play. One of them is called Chibi Me, and another one is called Subway Surfers. Now in Subway Surfers, to unlock the black characters, you have to try and collect coins in the game. And in Chibi Me, I couldn't really find that much characters with afro hair like mine. Oh. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. Well, I'm fourth, fifth.
Whilst Yvonne and Alyssa had to create their own game, there have been strides in the wider industry to be more representative. In the last year, we've seen massive games such as Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales have an Afro-Latino character at the forefront, and Animal Crossing specifically features black Afro hairstyles in an update. But when it comes to representation, is enough being done? A survey suggests that 1 in 10 of those working in the UK's games industry are from black, Asian or minority ethnic backgrounds. That's higher than the national working average and above that in the creative industries overall. So why are so many people creating their own games?
When it comes to diversifying industry, there's always a big focus on getting more people in, but the most important thing is training and development and retention. So I think if we actually improve those programs within games companies, we can definitely get more diverse people to stay and also rise up the ranks.
The games industry is only 40 years old. It's still very much a juvenile industry and still forming. So I think the representations have developed. We have come a long way since the 70s and 80s. However, there's still a long way to go. Those nuances in terms of bringing different representations brings in new stories, new ways of experiencing characters. And that diversity has a richness to it, which people are very, very receptive to.
So, it's not just about having representation, it's also about brands working with creators to bring about lasting change so that more players can truly win in the end.
That was Kessewa Brown. And that's it from us from Los Angeles. London. Still, it's been lovely, hasn't it?
It has been lovely. And as ever, you can keep up with the team on social media. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at BBC Click.
Thanks for watching and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.